We begin in West Africa, Nigeria, with the top stories and with news that Alhaji Alhassan Adamu, the Emir of Kajuru, has been released from captivity. It is also alleged that 13 other persons abducted from the monarch's private residence, including his daughter, are still in captivity. Now, according to sources, the Sarkin Kajuru was released around the forest areas leading to Kajuru's castle, and a member of the Emir's family said he's well and will be taken to the hospital for examination.
Quite an extraordinary story, I have to say. Now, Ibrahim Inuwa Kajuru, a former chairman of the Nigerian Union of Journalists in Kaduna State, confirmed the monarch's release. It is not unclear, though, if any ransom was paid, but the bandits earlier demanded the whooping sum of 200 million naira for the release of the 85-year-old monarch. Now, gunmen had on Sunday morning abducted Kajuru and 13 of his family members in his palace. Now, joining us this morning once again to really make sense of what's really going down in Kaduna is our correspondent and bureau chief in the nation's capital, Amadin Uyi. Well, Amadin, good morning to you. A traditional monarch being abducted in Kaduna is clearly not making any sense, is it now, in terms of the level of insecurity in that state?
Good morning, Olisa. Good morning, Oluchi. If you have followed the trend from Kaduna State, I think it's not surprising. Remember that a few years ago, the former king of or chief of Kajuru was abducted and killed. So it's not the first time, but if you have followed the insecurity events in Kaduna State, nothing from that state surprises anybody anymore. If a former chief was abducted, killed, up to today, nobody has been held responsible. And then the Emir of Kajuru was abducted. But it's not yet Uhuru because members of his family are still in captivity. So most probably he was released to go and raise the ransom for the bandits or kidnappers or whatever name we try to tag them. But it's just a reflection of what happens in Kaduna. Remember, I said earlier on this program that up to 90% of the kidnappings that go on in Kaduna, they go unreported. That happen in Kaduna go unreported. And it's just when prominent persons are kidnapped and killed or kidnapped for ransom that it gets to the press. But as it is a terrible, terrible, terrible insecurity situation in the northwestern state of Kaduna.
Right. Now, Amadin, looking at Kaduna in particular, it is the center for a lot of industrial and commercial activity in the northwestern part of Nigeria. It is home to a population of about 12 million people. And you've rightly said, this is not the first time we're having an emir being abducted. Sometime last year in January of 2020, a similar scenario happened. Are we starting to see a new approach towards kidnapping, which is targeting rulers of community in the northern part of Nigeria?
No, it's not the first time a traditional chief in Kaduna has been abducted. If you follow the events, especially Kajuru, Chikun, Kafanchan, most of those areas in the southern Kaduna is where we've had a lot of insecurity, a lot of attacks, a very high level of insecurity situation there. It's a norm for them. Those people, they live every day with their in prayers, hoping that something will be done. It's very clear the state government does not have the capacity to be able to quell or bring an end to the insecurity situation. But like I said, it's not the first time, it's not the second time. So I would not think it's a new norm there. I think it's just a reflection of what has been happening. The bandits, anybody they want to target, they target because the residents, they are like sitting dogs for those communities because the bandits just enter communities, do what they want to do. Those they want to abduct, they abduct. The police and the army, they don't have the capacity to police those communities. That's why we have called for a new security approach. But like I said, it's not the first time, it's not the second time, and I don't think it's going to be the last time it's happening in Kaduna. So for me, it's not a new norm. It's just a reflection of how bad the insecurity situation is over there.
Quite a sad one, Amadin. A video has emerged immediately. The emir returned home, of course, without his daughter. Let's take a look at that footage right here on Breakfast Central.
Jama'an Kajuru, ina muku barka da saduwa da ni.
Okay, so that is the Emir of Kajuru himself. Quite an emotional speech there. He talked about congratulating his people for uniting again and clearly broke down in tears. Amadin, that's a man who's gone to the great beyond, if you may, and back again. He's 85, yes, we know. Perhaps will have ill health. He does look, quite fit, but you can't take away the emotional turmoil of being taken and released, and just like you perhaps theorized, perhaps has to now look for the money to get his family and his daughter and his people.
Olisa, nobody should go through what these people are going through. Imagine someone at his age, 85, having to go through this. It definitely, just like you said, he's gone to the great beyond and has come back. Right now, he'll be thinking, where can such man, such elderly person, you see how he's dressed? It doesn't look like someone that has millions in his bank or billions in the palace. Where will such a person be able to raise that kind of money? So you see, criminality is taking a new dimension. It's taking a new trend. And until something is done to curb it, I don't think that man, from the way I'm seeing him, I don't think if anything happens to his loved ones, he'll be able to survive. So it's just a wake-up call for the government. Whoever is responsible in designing and mapping our security architecture, we need to put pride and self-arrogance behind. It has nothing to do with whether the army has capacity or the police have capacity. They definitely don't have capacity. It has nothing to do with whether they are well equipped. Because even if you release 2 trillion to security agencies today, can they police all those villages? Can they police these hamlets? The north is not like the south, where you see a very large population live in a particular area. The north, they have hamlets and homesteads in several parts. So you see a wide expanse of land. You see about 2, 3, or 4 or 5 huts. Before you travel how many kilometers before you see another one again? The question is, how can you police this kind of communities? So we need to sit down as Nigerians and chart a way forward that will bring an end to this menace.
All right, thank you very much, Amadin Uyi, our Abuja Bureau chief and correspondent. It's clearly a heartbreaking story. I can't imagine, traveling through all that Chiku, Kajuru, Kafancha, and Zonkwa regions. These are places I've traveled as a young man in this country, and to think that I dare not perhaps even try now in 2021, quite mind-boggling. Thank you very much, Amadin Uyi, once again.
Thank you, Oluchi.
Right, still staying with the kidnap story in Kaduna. Now, the closure of 13 schools following the kidnap of 140 students and the strings of armed attacks on schools in Kaduna State in northern Nigeria have had both security experts and educationists in the country seeing this act as a threat that could permanently damage children's education in the northern part of Nigeria.
Now, News Central's Omolola Ololade has been following this story and put together this report.
The recent wave of kidnappings continues to worsen the education crisis in northern Nigeria, a region with an incredibly high rate of out-of-school children. This has been a massive disruption to gains that have recorded in years past and now made worse by last year's restrictions imposed due to COVID. With the most recent kidnapping of 140 students in Kaduna State, security experts are of the opinion that bandits no kidnapping students guarantee publicity and government involvement in negotiations, which could translate to a huge amount of money in ransom payment. Some of these experts also give practical solutions to dealing with the situation.
The kidnap for ransom industry is more lucrative than legal activity. The average young man in the north who puts kola nut on his head and sells that kola nuts, in a year, the profit is likely to may not be more than 25,000 naira. But that same young man, if he engages in kidnap for ransom, he can make millions of naira, and with no consequence really in terms of the administration of criminal justice. The ungoverned spaces that exist in Kaduna State, the forest, the mountainous areas that these bandits hide and continued activities must be dominated, like immediately. And once they are dominated, then we would have prevented them from those havens, and more importantly, from using those ungoverned spaces to keep their victims.
On the implication of these abductions on children's education, particularly in northern Nigeria, academicians say the spate of attacks on schools in the northwest is a double assault on the region.
You can't keep them closed indefinitely. They must learn. Unfortunately, some of these kids now are missing these NECO exams that have started because their schools have been shut down. Especially here in Kaduna, a number of schools have been shut down, especially when they're around in areas where, development hasn't gotten there yet. So what do you do? Shut down, maybe as a temporary measure, but it cannot be a long-term solution. So what happens is that you have more children now becoming out of school. And generally that number now just increases the numbers that we already have that we're even trying to solve in the first place.
Although bandits have made a devastating effect on education across northern Nigeria, stakeholders involved must continue to try to fix the problem against all odds, so the probability of having children with bleak future becomes even lesser. Omolola Ololade reporting for News Central.
All right, thank you very much, Omolola Ololade, our News Central correspondent, putting together that report. So we also had in that report an educationist, an academic, and a security expert. So where do we go from here in northern Nigeria?
I mean, Olisa, looking at Kaduna right now as we speak, over 40% of the population is living below the poverty line. If you're comparing the poverty head ratio, comparing it to a state like Anambra, that is 3 times the effect of what you have in Kaduna. Anambra has three times less, more opportunities, I beg your pardon. If you're comparing the same poverty head count ratio to Lagos, it's 10 times worse in Kaduna as compared to people living in Lagos. Clearly, Kaduna is a central focal point because a lot of commercial and industrial activity in the northern part of the region happens in Kaduna.
And it seems like no type of institution has been spared, whether it's primary or secondary or tertiary, polytechnic, universities, public or private. Everyone seems to be getting, I'm sorry to say, a taste of the sadness or the action, if you may. And it seems that, the government cannot do anything. It's almost helpless. Like if the Emir of Kajuru can be taken and schools and people can be taken, then who's next on the list in terms of Kaduna education? Really bedeviling the sector in that part of the country.
All right.